I've been in the film industry for over 30 years. I'm an entertainment attorney turned producer director. I was in the music industry prior to that for quite a while. And currently, I'm the executive director of the Independent Producers Guild. So the guild sets standards and best practices and gives guidance to independent producers so that their productions can run smoother and within the bounds of the law, because sometimes people don't know some of the things they do are illegal or dangerous in some way. And the other thing that we do is we represent them, and our mandate is to help create structures that will allow independent producers to be more profitable, and get their production out in distribution and to a paying audience. Okay, so we represent professional producers, people who are doing it because they need to make more money for it. So with that background, I've done a lot of very, very broad set of production types, from live theater, several years of reality shows like Name reality shows, Mob Wives, Restaurant Impossible, Top Chef Masters, Pauly D's show. And I've been in zero budgets to mega budget productions in various places in production, from, like I said, zero budget all the way up to, I don't know what the largest budget production I was in. Ali was $110 million, I understand, and I was on that show when I got to work with Michael Mann at the time, and meet some very famous people. So I've got a very broad background. As far as producers, it's a really, really terrible term. Not defined at all what it really is. A producer might be basically a production assistant, or a producer might be in charge of the whole production, right? So, or anywhere in between. So there are different kinds of producers. Some of them have labels. But really, it's not a well-defined production. To us, the Independent Producers Guild, a producer is somebody who's creating a motion picture project and getting it to market. So basically, it's a creator. That person may be the director as well. They may be the writer who is taking it upon themselves to bring this project to life, or it may be the director who's championing their own project. On the other hand, it might simply be a producer who has found a production, a script that they want to champion, and they want to find the money and get it to market. So for us, a producer is the producer, but although there are other production functions that would fall within producing, and we also represent those, like line producers, coordinators, production managers. Those are all producing functions. Production assistant is a producing function, all the way up to executive producer. So the real, if there were to be defined a term of the producer or a producer, it's the person who brings the project to screen from beginning to end. It's really an all-encompassing term. So within that, we can talk about different kinds of producers: line producers, supervising producers, associate producers, and but I would need to know what you want to know within those things, and I can define them separately if that's of importance to the audience. So.
Yeah, what is a line producer? Because I do not know this term for a long time, only recent time. Yeah.
Okay. So the word line producer, if you look at a standard traditional feature film budget or television budget, there is what we call above the line and below the line. Okay. And the line is the line. So above the line would be your star cast, your director, your executive producer, your writer, maybe one or two other people. But basically, that's above the line. Everyone else on the production is below the line. So they get accounted for below that line. And the line producer is the producer at the top of that line. They're the producer that runs and accounts for the whole production, everything below that line. They basically answer to the executive producer or the lead producer, but they're the chief manager for the production. Sometimes they might have the title of production manager. On a feature film, it's usually the line producer, but sometimes it's called the production manager. If it's a very large production, you might have both. And if you have both, then technically the production manager is below the line producer. But it's kind of the same sort of function. Okay, so they are the head manager for the whole production. They do the accounting, the hiring, the firing, the supervision, make sure everything's on budget and on time, and things like that. So they're the chief executive on the day-to-day part of the production as a rule.
So how does the transition from being a lawyer to film producer when you are doing do you find more satisfactory by being a producer, meaning more, I guess, hands-on, and when you're a lawyer you are helping people and solving problems, I guess. So how does that transition go?
Um, well, I mean, how did the transition go? When I was a lawyer, I was, I didn't really, I was a litigator. So I did entertainment litigation. So I was the black hat lawyer. Okay. And for that, you have to, if you're going to be successful at that, you need to really, really know the business of production very, ins and out. But I got a chance to direct a film, my first film, and it was in the film days, and it was a novel, a featurette called Duet. And the first night on that production, I went out onto the set, and I could smell, I was the only person on the soundstage, and the lights had been on all day long, and they're very, very hot, and the gel, which changes your light color, had been burning, and so there's this weird acrid kind of scent in the air. But I walked out there, and I remember that scent, and I looked around, and I realized that I wanted to be on a film set for the rest of my career. And so that really, there was no transition. There was a time transition when I had to shut down my law practice and move into filmmaking. But it was really, that was it. That was the decision. That's where I wanted to be. And I haven't looked back since. That was a long time ago. But in terms of producing, there's a lot of lawyers in the mainstream film industry, and for a reason. One of the things that film does, that motion picture does, any creative endeavor, but especially when we're in media, is you're taking a whole bunch of other people's rights and you're putting it into a new product, and then you're selling out and you're licensing those new rights to other parties. What that means legally is that there are lots of legal issues, mostly created, related to copyright, but also employment issues and things like that. And if you're a good lawyer and you understand the industry, you really need to do both. Then you have a step up on it, as a producer. It's still not an easy industry. Okay, but all the details that you have to work with on a daily basis, you recognize them a lot. So my legal background is vital. And being up to date with the law is vital in my position. And if you're a producer and you don't have that appreciation, you can still produce. But you do need, at some point, you do need an appreciation of the kinds of issues that are being raised in your day-to-day work. And some of them are not obvious, so that's an important kind of background to have. But really, everybody in the industry says that. Really, I want to direct. Okay. Really, I want to direct. I produce because I have to produce, and I'm good at it, and that's why I'm the head of the guild. And I'm good at it partly because of my background, but partly because I'm a very, very controlling person. Okay, a good producer is a controlling person. They have to know what is going on the set at every single moment, so that nothing goes sideways, right? And so many things can go sideways so quickly on a film set. So I'm good at that. But really, I produce because I have my own shows, and I work with people who have their own voices and expressions that they want to get to the public. They want to get out. They want to create it. And the best part of what I do is working with artists, working with the talent, working with a really, really good director of photography, uh, top actor, or a great production designer, and kind of collaborating with them. That's really the producing proper doesn't really do that on a daily basis. Maybe in television a little bit more, not in feature film. So that's part of the directing function, and that's what I really love to do. I don't hear you.
Sorry, I was on mute. Sorry. Tell us a little bit about the guild. Like, who are these directors, or who are these producers uh, need to join you? What are they benefit become a member of the organization, and how do you help them?
Okay, so we're a young organization. We just passed our 2.5 year mark. We're growing very fast, and we're an international organization. We're not local to Los Angeles. So we have members in, yeah, that's the website. Uh, we have members in the UK, in Canada, in the EU, across the United States, and our viewpoint is kind of global. And that's kind of where media is going. And ever since the advent of the internet, that is where communication and media and culture wants to go. So we, as producers and as people that have been in the industry for a long time, our 4 founding members, and our top members right now, for among the 4 of us, have 126 years of experience among us. We've all been in the industry for more than 30 years. And one of the things that we recognized was that the pace of new production and the demand for the demand among filmmakers for knowledge and skills, and the need that they have to be able to get their productions to market is not served by the current system. The current system evolved during the brick and mortar era, okay, and cinema, which is pretty much failing at this point, is part of that. And cinema is what we call a zero-sum game. Okay, so in other words, there are, in the United States, for instance, there's about 22,000 screens. And if a mainstream studio takes 5,000 of those up, that's 5,000 screens that are denied to another studio or to another filmmaker. And there are no more screens. Okay, and that's where the major studio industry came from. And their attitude is very much about controlling distribution and thinking that if somebody watches your show, they're losing money somehow. That's not the reality in the digital age. Uh, Movies and series and any kind of media in the digital age is not a zero-sum game. Just because somebody watches my show doesn't mean they're not going to watch your show, because it's all on demand. All right, it's not in a time slot where they have to pick and choose. They can watch them both. And the truth is, there's not enough content on the planet to satisfy the demand from moment to moment. But the system still that is still current doesn't help us as an independent community. So a number of us got together, we discussed some of these issues. Many of them are legal issues. Many of them are cultural issues in terms of, what a filmmaker is told they need to do or they should do or how they should produce the production. And some of them are just access to audience issues. And so we formed the guild to address all of those things. So we're a small group of some very talented, very experienced people. I count myself experienced. I don't, allow the people can judge if I'm talented. And we have a large group of up and coming producers. We have very few people in between. We have a lot of people in their 20s who tend to be, I'm just going to do it type of people. I don't know this. I know this is a hard industry because everybody tells you that. You don't know how hard it is until you've been in it for 5 years. But they're people that have a voice. I've got a voice. I've got an expression. I need to figure out how to do it because nobody's going to help me. So that tends to be the group of young producers that we're bringing on, and some of them are very talented. And those are the group of people that we focus on. We're looking for people who want to get their expression out there. We're looking for people who know that it's a challenge, and have the confidence in their self that they can figure it out if they get some direction and if they get some guidance here and there. That is what all they need. Now that isn't all they need because it is a really tough industry, but we can help those people, and those are the people that we want to help because those are the people who are going to own this industry 15 years from now, 10 years from now. They're literally going to own it. NBC Universal is going to be gone. Netflix is going to be gone. I mean, they might legally be around, but the audience doesn't need them. What the audience needs is new ideas, new expression. They need to connect with people that talk about what they are thinking and experiencing and the stories they have that they want to tell and share. And that's the new generation. The reason we don't have people in the middle is not because they don't recognize that there's a requirement for this, but very often they're stuck in that economic system and they kind of can't get out. Their legal and contractual obligations are with some of the major distributors, excuse me, or they can't make the leap to it's a business. When I got into film, it was only 30 years ago, but it was film. And it was the end of the independent filmmaker era. In the year 2000, pretty much, you could never get into a theater as an independent filmmaker from then until now, with very rare exceptions. It's been a lockout since then. Prior to that, in the 90s, when I got into it, you could still do that. And it was a business. You wanted to create a film, you'd get it to a distributor. It wasn't NBC. It wasn't Netflix. It was, in Canada, it was somebody called Red Sky Entertainment, and they had a whole bunch of them. And they would distribute your film worldwide. And they would pay you. And nobody involved in the mainstream studio system was there. Never. Not never, but that was a whole other system. Now, the culture is that you have a script, you want to get it done, you go and you pitch to a producer who you think or hope is connected to one of the major studios because they have the money. And really all you're doing is bringing them ideas, right? And it's not a business when you do that. You're selling an idea to a studio for them to develop and maybe give you some money later on. So we as independent producers, and I know as an independent producer, just did it, right? You knew you wanted to do something and you did it, and you got it to market, and you've been successful at that part of it. But it is a business, and so our part of the culture that we're trying to change is for people to understand this is a business. It's not a hobby. If it is, it's a really, really terrible hobby because it's so expensive.
Yeah.
and it's so complicated, and there's very little, return for that. You have to, even at the low budget level, what we call zero budget, there's no such thing as zero budget. It costs a lot of money, time, and effort. And so in one of the things we're doing with the people that we bring on is teaching them the attitude of that this is a business. There's a lot of money involved. It's other people's money usually, even if it's not, or maybe it's more important to you if it's yours, but it's important either way. And there's a lot of other things. So you have to be business minded, and it has to be artistic. It has to
I have
mean
a
something.
question. I have a question. When you say Netflix eventually is going to disappear, and I would think the movie theater may not exist, just like bookstores is diminished so much. People buy book online and people listen to the books. Yeah, so film, like television series, becomes so hot these days. So how do you find your audience in terms of a producer's job is produce film, and then eventually I guess you're connected to distributors, but then when distributor have the goods, how do they sell to to their audience, to the film theaters? So even my question is basically, are we losing our audiences, or how do we develop audience for the film industry?
So there are two industries. There's the mainstream industry, mostly headed by the Motion Picture Association. There's only six owners in that group. There's only six companies, and they own directly or indirectly much of the AM, what we call the AMPTP, the people that just went through the collective bargaining thing. Um, and then there's the independent industry. All right. So when you are part of the MPA, you already have distribution, or you are distribution. So NBC Universal has its own distribution outlets. It has contractual relationships with the AMC and the other theatrical outlets, and they have their own other outlet. Obviously, Netflix has its own subscription-based service, which is now going to advertiser service. So, but they have these audiences built in. Prior to the what I called the lockout in 2000, you would hand your production off to a distributor. They would give you money. They would give you money for the license to distribute it. They might buy you out entirely, or it might be in advance. But the more money they gave you, the more effort they would put into marketing your film. All right. And so for you as a filmmaker, you wanted to get the highest advance possible, because the more money they paid you, the more effort they'd put into your film, which means you would make money and you'd make another film. All right. So that because of economic reasons and the evolution of streaming and subscription services, and I won't get into the details right here, but because the way the economy has gone and some disastrous ideas for distribution by the major studios, which were errors, smaller distributors don't make the money. So they don't give you an advance any longer. It's very rare. We used to have what's called a negative pickup deal. You would do a film, you would deliver the negative to the distributor, they would hand you a check. That's the negative pickup. That is, I don't know anybody who's got that now for a long, long time, 5 or 10 years even. And the reason we don't have that is not because they're cheap. They are cheap, but it's not because they're cheap. It's because they don't have the money anymore. The money in streaming is much for SVOD, for subscription services, just isn't there. It's an economic loser, and the whole industry went and followed Netflix into the SVOD system, and it's just a disaster. With rare exceptions, there's ways to make it work, but it's not in a general catalog environment. It has to be a very specific kind of thing. So the long and short of it is, we as independent filmmakers are left in back to the very early days of film, like the very early days, the 1910s, 1920s, the 1930s, where we, at that time, you did a film and you marketed it and you showed it and you made the money. And the word roadshow comes from those days. You would actually make your film, you would take it on the road, you would go and you would rent out a theater here and there, and it was a roadshow. And that evolved into the current system over a number of years. So where we are today, though, because of the economics, because of the fact that the money that you're going to get paid, if you get paid up front, is very, very low, and because of the kind of structure of distribution, you're an independent filmmaker, you don't get to deal with Tubi. You go to a company called Film Hub, and Film Hub deals with Tubi. Well, you have no relationship with Tubi. If Tubi's not paying you, it's not you can't do anything about it. And Film Hub, I'll tell you right off, doesn't check the numbers. I know that because we deal with streamers, and we deal with Film Hub, and they just
But my film,
they take the word. And so me as a distributor, me as a filmmaker, I give it to Film Hub, it goes to Tubi or wherever. If Tubi is not paying for it, I have no legal recourse against Tubi. I can go to Film Hub, but my contract with Film Hub says that whatever Film Hub accounts for it is fine. So, but also I didn't get paid up front, right? I'm giving the content for free. The word content makes it free. I'm
right.
giving my movie to them to monetize and pay me later. This is a very unprofessional thing to do. It's dumb. In any other industry, it would not be tolerated. But the way the film industry has evolved, we feel we have to do this, and this is the structure we're left with. So, but as it's happening over the last couple of years, and especially the last year, and on into the future, we have the ability to reach a global audience because the tools and the broadband and the other kind of all sorts of infrastructure things that have to be there for us to do that are now matured. Okay,
Mhm.
so we basically, you can deliver your product to the globe from your website. You literally can. So now the only question is how you get that word out, and that we haven't been, as an industry, as an independent industry, we haven't been here for quite a while. This is back to the old days. But the fact is, how do I market anything, right? So,
Yeah.
And we have the additional strangeness of social media, which isn't really marketing at all, but we're told it is. But we have a whole bunch of new tools, and we've got a lot of old tools. But the good part is that we can control that, and we can know where it goes. And when we create a fan base, it's our fan base. It's not a distributor's, it's not NBC's, it's not somebody else's. It's our fan base directly, right? So we don't need 20 million views to make money. We need to be smart about our costs, and we need to figure out how to reach those fans. And there might be word of mouth, obviously, is the big one. And it's, at the end of the day, word of mouth is the only marketing that works. But there is banner ads, there's video ads, there's all sorts of things. There's email lists, there's free screenings. There's a lot, all the tools that you would do if you were going to sell a car, or if you were going to sell anything,
Whoa. I keep hearing. So, all right. I'm gonna try to solve some problems. Anyway, I made a documentary with very little budget, and now we applied for Film Hub, and Film Hub, connect us with Tubi and Amazon Prime. So to me, it's a big deal. Amazon Prime, it's almost like a calling card. Oh, I'll film to Amazon Prime. But the reality is, it's you know it's like we didn't spend $15,000 to hire a publicist to publicize the film on uh, Prime TV or Tubi TV. So, like you said, it's a it's difficult. Even if your film is on those platforms, you have to spend money to attract audience, and then the revenue come in probably is not only 1% of how much money you would have spent, right?
Yes. Yeah. But look at it. So one of the things that filmmakers are not doing, that as business people we need to do, is look at it from the platform's viewpoint. All right. So I'm Tubi. Understand, Tubi is owned by Fox.
Hmm.
It's owned by Disney. All right. And they were bought in 2019. All right. Before that, they were strictly advertiser funded, which they still are, and free views, but it was all independent film,
Hmm.
all of it. All right. And now, since they were bought by Fox, they now, when you look at your feed, because I've always been on Tubi and I watch it, and I noticed my feed and my suggestions now include mainstream stuff more and more and more. It happens to be older stuff because that's what Tubi does. It's not the first run that would go to Netflix or go to, but it is major studio stuff. And and they are, I know, behind the scenes they're pruning a lot of independent content, and just getting rid of it. So over time, it's becoming, they're monetizing the catalog that that Fox has, that Disney has, and people like that. So, but the way they're doing that is by bait and switch the traffic that we as independent filmmakers generate. Okay, so currently on Tubi you still get seen. Currently on Amazon Prime you still get seen. But here's the thing that you one thing that would be revealing to you when you get on Amazon. I don't know what Prime does, but Amazon generally pays a penny a stream right now, which is absurd. But so they're paying you a penny a stream, or if if you trust the statistics. But understand, they paid $50 million for the streaming rights to Coming to America 2. They paid for that. So guess what they're doing with this inexpensive movie content? They're using it as traffic to bait and switch to the content, to the films that they want to monetize, right? And that's what they all do with independent shows. So
Sorry, Cheryl, we actually charge $1.99 for
yeah,
people viewing us.
right. So you can't,
Not free.
that works, right? The payment, the TVOD part works, and it works fairly well on Amazon, right? As long as you're getting the traffic, because the fact that you're there at all is because when you market your movie, you're bringing traffic to Amazon. There's not going to be links that go to your merchandise off of Amazon. Amazon wants to, that might even be against, I haven't looked at their terms, but I'm going to say it's against their terms. They want to keep the whole transaction on Amazon, and they're going to switch that. So your marketing effort, Amazon is leveraging your marketing effort. And then because it's kind of a quasi social media experience, or it's a platform experience, once they get there, they want to keep them there. All right. So that's with every platform. And honestly, if you're doing a movie off your own website, that's what you want to do. You want to get people to your site. You want to keep them there. You want to, so that's the game that we're in. And a lot of independent filmmakers don't recognize that game. And it's important they do, right? So what else? I don't know. I think I might have lost where the question went.
Yeah, no, I was just asking about audience, and are we eventually going to streaming, lose the theaters, and people are spending time watching TV series at their comfort of their couch, and they can have like a 55 to whatever 100 inch of a huge television, and with that 5.10.
Well, I mean, those of us who've been around, anybody over the age of 30 probably loves theaters, really. Probably everybody does, but it's part of I grew up with them and everything like that. So in a way, it's kind of culturally sad to see if they go away, and everybody wants them to stay because of the experience. But the truth is, audience, the way we consume our entertainment has really, really changed. And theaters are not on demand, right? You have to show up at a certain time and watch a certain movie. And it's expensive. I mean, come on, it's popcorn and soda. And you're charging, if I want to take somebody out, it might be $60 by the time we get out of there with popcorn and soda and a movie. That's silly. When I can watch a first run movie on demand for like $9, right, at my home. So also whenever I feel like it. So the audience and the audience preferences have changed, because when you have a zero-sum game, when you only have a certain number of screens, there's only a certain number of movies to choose from as an audience member. In the digital world, you don't have to choose a Netflix show. You can choose an independent show. You can choose them both. But the fact is, the audience now is allowed to go far afield from what they see in the movie theaters. They can watch anything they want, and their preferences are. I don't know that we've ever had this in the film industry, that we've ever had this kind of experience, because the audience preferences can dictate a lot of where marketing goes, where before they were kind of fed what the studios wanted to do. Not that they didn't do market research or anything like that, but the thing is, now audience gets more and more to do what they do. And my experience, my observation is, they don't care about A-list actors. They don't care about B-list actors. They care about the value of what it is and the experience that they're watching. It could be any good actor. It could be any good film. That's what I think. And that's what I think is starting to develop. And that spells death, financial death, for the studio system, because they require, as an independent filmmaker, they're the first thing they're going to say is, who's attached? They want somebody that they know that they can market. But what use is that if the growing audience doesn't care, right? And if you're in a mega budget game, where does that get you when your audience has been gutted because they don't care about the only real marketing issue you have, which is the name or the franchise? Maybe it's Transformers or something like that. So that's really changed.
Yeah, sorry. It feels unethical to me that when I hear people say, "Oh, I have this project," right? And the first thing people say, "Who's in it?" They want to name actors and actresses, and yeah, it's just to shut the door. But in the classical music, I am in classical music also world. The New York Philharmonic or Philadelphia Philharmonic, they always still feature Long Long or Yu Jia Wang, that's the superstar. But I also see their brochures, they do feature younger artists, not always super famous people. So yeah, and it's very interesting what you mentioned about not always need audience. Not a lot of audience, they don't really care, right? Lot of them, yeah.
I mean, there's there's a familiar name or somebody you've seen before that might catch your attention, right? So there is a purpose to that. But the idea that it's not useful without that person is silly, especially because you're going to end up marketing it anyway, right? Unless you're actually going to hand it off to them. So what is that? You're just satisfying, and that's a cultural thing among the financiers. Business culture, and they're not thinking. Investors don't tend to be really smart people. I'll just say that as a blanket statement. That's not really fair to a lot of people, but they're not thinking closely, and the word is A-lister. Well, can you get somebody in an A-lister in this film? Dude, it's a $5 million budget. Do you know what an A-lister costs? Right? Do you know a real A-lister?
How much Nicole Kidman cost?
Say again?
Nicole
Kidman. Yeah, I don't know what her last payday is, but she's not appearing in a $5 million film. And what comes with an A-lister is you no longer to get to direct it because it has to be an A-list director and it has to be an A-list cinematographer and they get paid extra. Then you have to have an A-list distributor because that has to get to a certain level of audience. So that game is different. And so when you hear that knee-jerk response, that knee-jerk question from somebody, the question that you might have to them is, do you have $50 million? Because I'm asking for 5.
Mm.
Right? So if you have $50 million, I'll get Nicole Kidman. Trust me, I can. There's nobody on the planet that I can't get if you've got the money, right? They're not hard. They're not hard to find. They all have agents. And the first question the agent is going to ask is, do you have money? That's the first question, right? So it is difficult. Unethical. I don't know if it's unethical, but I think I feel it's very frustrating for independent filmmakers because it's a chicken and egg syndrome, right? I need the money to get the talent, and you're telling me you want the talent before I get the money. That's a problem. But I think the audience's preferences are way wider and broader than what the mainstream studios produce. Much, much more accepting of different voices, and they want them, right? I think so.
That's great. And tell us a little bit about, you are the director now for the Eartha Kitt film, and how does that happen, and why you pick Eartha Kitt? Are there any historical reasons?
Um, I hate biopics. I don't like them. They never tell you about the person. They find some, what was the recent one was Churchill with Woody Harrelson was in it. It was a good movie, but it didn't tell me anything about Winston Churchill. It was just a moment in his time, and then they told you some of the events of his life. Okay. So I want to know something about the person. Eartha Kitt is a lot of people in the audience might know her as the voice of Isma. Many people might know her as one of the most famous Catwoman from the original Batman series. She's the voice of Santa Baby. We just finished the Christmas season, and you heard Santa Baby constantly. She was the original singer of that. She had a 60-year-long career that covered song, dance, theater, movies, everything, and all age groups today. You might be 5 years old and you know who Eartha Kitt is, or you know something about her. And across the world, she was a truly global star. But she was kind of a self-made star in a way. Not exactly. But she wasn't picked by a studio and turned into a star. She worked every day of her life to do on her stardom and to reach an audience. And the other thing is she was a true artist. And she spoke what she felt an artist should do, which is tell the truth at all times and not sugarcoat things, because, as she felt, one of the things she said was an artist who permits themselves to be quiet, I'm paraphrasing, who permits themselves to be silenced ceases to be an artist. All right. So in January 1968, she was invited to speak at a White House luncheon with the Lyndon Johnson White House and Lady Bird Johnson. And the topic of the day was the rise in juvenile delinquency. And she was one of 2 non-white faces there. And they ignored her pretty much to the end. But it was a luncheon. It was called the Women Doers Luncheon. And they were supposed to talk about solutions to things. And Eartha had done her homework. She was invited for 2 reasons to that luncheon as a black face. First of all, she had never spoken out against the Vietnam War, and that was a very hot topic for the Lyndon Johnson administration in 1968. And the American public were not behind that war. They didn't like it, and they were unhappy about it. And the other thing was that she had spoken, she had done work and raised money for a company, for a cause, something called Rebels with a Cause. And there were groups of people on inner cities who basically worked to improve the city. They helped improving infrastructure in places like that. And she spoke to Congress for them. So she was invited to this. Well, she did her homework. She talked to mothers of Watts. She talked to her audiences. She talked to other people about this issue, because she thought, I'm going to the White House. They're going to talk about this issue. What is the issue? I should have something to say. And when she got there, the only thing that they talked about was more policing in urban areas and beautifying America. Lady Bird Johnson, you can't make this up. Her solution to the rise in juvenile delinquency was to line Route 66 coast to coast with flowers. That was literally her solution. That's on the record. Eartha got up and told it like it is. And she said, look, the reason you have a rise in juvenile delinquency is because Vietnam. Because the American boys don't want to go to Vietnam to kill other boys that they don't know for a reason that they haven't been told. They love their country, but they don't understand why they're doing this. And the mothers of these young men support them. And so what they do is they go out. You can't be drafted if you have a criminal record. So there is a rise in criminal delinquency. One of the things they do is they go out and they get arrested for smoking pot, or they get arrested for petty crime or something. Now they have a record. They're not going to Vietnam. They didn't want to hear this. But the very next day, literally the very next day, her career in North America evaporated. Eartha Kitt was done in North America. They didn't even drive her back to her hotel room, and they didn't tell her that they canceled her ride. She's standing out front of the White House waiting for her limo. It never shows up. The FBI and the CIA called her reps. They called everybody that they knew was where she was going to be playing and touring, and said, Eartha Kitt's a problem, right? Meanwhile, the news went crazy. Mothers were saying Eartha Kitt speaks for the mothers of America and whatnot. So I learned about this. I didn't learn about this at the time. Eartha Kitt left the United States. She didn't come back. I mean, she was here. She lived here, but she didn't get to work here until again in 1978. And then in 1978, her career in North America picks up. And she's in movies, and she's in Boomerang with, that movie with, I can't remember, and Isma and Disney and whatnot, and people love her, and everybody remembered her. But I heard that story, and I'm like, who does that? Who goes to the White House itself and tells them the truth in their face, in their own house, right? That person is somebody we need to know. That person is somebody we need to know what makes them tick. Because I tell you true, Martin Luther King wouldn't have done that. And probably Malcolm X wouldn't have done that. Eartha did it. And so we want to tell this story, and I go back all the way to her childhood, and we find out what kind of influences there were on her life, and what philosophy she had that made her do that. When you know who she is, it's inevitable. There's nothing else she would have or could have done in that position when you understand who she is. And so the story about Eartha Kitt, C'est Bon, is who this person is. And
did you write the script?
I wrote the script.
Uh-huh.
It's in a choreo poem form. It's a very specific.
What is that? What does that mean?
It's a theatrical form. It's not been filmed before, but it's a very artistic form, and it was created. It's an American theatrical form, and I chose that because of its artistic way. There's actually no plot climax in a choreo poem. It has a thematic plot line and a thematic climax, and it's very useful for getting at the heart of emotions and the heart of what drives a person. It's not about events. There are events, and we break the choreograph form in that we have a linear story because people are used to that. But that's what it's about. And in fact, I'm not directing it. I'm kind of co-directing it. My director is a woman named Diamond Monique Washington, and she was the Independent Producer Guild's recipient of the Best Up and Coming Director last year, and she will be directing this. And she's an amazingly talented woman, and one of the best writers I've seen, and a natural. Directing is not a natural kind of thing. It takes a lot of life experience and artistic vocabulary and a lot of moving parts go into a good director, and she's a natural at it. And in the movie, we have Trina Parks is our choreographer. Trina Parks was Thumper in Diamonds Are Forever. And the reason she's on board, people will remember the scene, but the reason she's on board is because she teaches and practices the same kind of dance that Eartha Kitt was trained in. And a lot of the movie has to do with dance. It's a very artistic movie and a very specific dance. So we need a very specific choreographer. And she's a lovely, lovely woman that we're dealing with. And I want to tell you who we're talking with right now for one of the other leads, but I can't because he hasn't said yes yet. So,
is it? Are you in pre-production, or when is the objective time?
Still putting the last pieces of finance together, and it's a tough road. Not, it's 2024 now. I'm here to tell you, we have 5 leads, 4 of them are black females. That is in 2024. That's a no-go in Hollywood. It just is, unless they can market that to sequester it into a black audience and they can market it a certain way. But with an Eartha Kitt film is a mainstream audience by definition, and that is a very difficult task. All the normal stuff that you deal with in trying to finance it, but then there's also this very bias. And I'm not saying that people are racist. The system itself is pitched against it. So it's been a challenge, but we are ready to go into pre-production at any moment. And we've got Robert Belchin on board. We've got Danny Lane on board. We've got Ashley Olivia Jones on board. Trina Parks. Keiko Nakahara is my director of photography. She's not known here anymore, but she's made 40 or 50 films. She works all over the world. She's a remarkably talented woman. And everybody is like, let's do it. I'm on board. Let's do it. Let's get going. So, we've got a line producer ready to go in Atlanta. We're going to shoot in Atlanta. And whatnot, but it's ready to go, and the people that are attached to it are committed, and it's going to be a great movie.
That's good to know. And Shadow, may I ask a personal question? Your last name, it was a little difficult for me to pronounce. Dragu-Mihai. What kind of last name it is? Like, what is your ancestry?
It's Romanian.
Oh,
okay, wow. And it's hyphenated, and our family hyphenated the name. That's both of our grandparents, paternal. On my father's side, it's both his paternal and maternal. One side is Dragu, and the other side is Mihai, and those two families happen to be connected anyway. So we hyphenated the name to Dragu-Mihai. Dragu is dragon, right? And
dragon.
And Mihai is means Michael. But it's also related to, both of those are related to the House of the Dragon, the royal family of one of the royal families of Romania. So we use that.
Great. My echo is getting worse. I apologize for my audience and for Shadow. We're at the end of our session. Would you like to play a rapid fire with me? Which
Sure.
is a question kind of
Sure.
not very serious questions. Okay. All right. So if you don't have to worry about money or making money, I give you a year or two, go somewhere. Which city you want to go for pleasure?
For pleasure.
Uh-huh.
Oh, good Lord.
You work too hard. You don't know where you want to go.
Paris, probably.
Where?
Paris.
Paris? Oh, that's a nice choice. Yeah. What is your favorite TV series right now? Are you watching anything?
I don't watch a lot of TV. I just finished watching um, what is that? Lioness.
Linus?
Lioness. It's a Netflix show. What was the first part? That's only the second half of it. It was a
Oh,
series with Zoe Saldana and who's the other one? You mentioned her name back as the A-lister.
oh,
Uh,
director?
no, actress.
Oh, actress Nicole
Yeah,
Kidman.
Nicole Kidman. Yeah, she's in it too.
Okay.
Nice series.
Oh,
Nice. I don't watch a lot of TV because mainstream like
I see.
regular TV bothers me. I don't like it too much.
Uh-huh.
Just that's the way it is. But yeah, but it was a good series. Codename Lioness, I think that's what it's called.
I see.
I recommend it. Yeah.
And what is your favorite? What is your favorite food genre?
Chinese.
That's a good answer.
It's good food. It's very, so
Yeah,
much different in it. It's
yeah.
lots of variety.
Who would play you in the movie?
Who would play me in a movie? Oh, good Lord. I pass. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Am I interesting enough
Oh,
to me?
Robert De Niro.
Maybe Robert De Niro, right?
Yeah, yeah. You look like one.
Younger Robert De Niro, younger. Yeah.
Younger.
Harvey Keitel, maybe Harvey Keitel.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Now, if you had a chance of having dinner with three persons separately, not at the same time, who would you pick?
Julius Caesar. Nzinga Mbande. I'll tell you if you don't know who she is. I'll tell you in a
I
minute.
don't know.
Um, and Catherine Dunham. Okay, so Julius Caesar, we all know who he is,
Yes.
but he is not who the popular culture thinks he is.
Mm.
He was a reformer. He was a populist, and the reason he was murdered was because he was changing the Roman system to the more advantage of people that were not in the patrician class. Nzinga Mbande was a queen, an African queen in the 1600s, I guess, and of what we now call Angola. And she stopped dead the Portuguese slave trade. She stopped it in its tracks, and she was a warrior queen within a patriarchal system. She became queen, and she had female generals, and she was highly respected by the Europeans as a tough diplomat and as somebody they had to deal with. And she, as I said, she stopped dead the slave trade from that central part, and she protected her people. And she was a very, very strong, intelligent, capable woman. And I want to know what drove her. And Catherine Dunham was Eartha Kitt's mentor. And Catherine Dunham created a dance style called the Dunham technique, but she is called the queen of black dance in America. There is very little that you see in choreography related to dance today, unless it's European choreography in North America, that doesn't relate one way or another to her. And she trained a lot of very, very effective people. Marlon Brando, Jose Ferrer, Eartha Kitt herself, James Dean, all these people. But she was a truly self-made star. She choreographed for the Metropolitan Ballet, a black woman choreographed for the Metropolitan Ballet in the 1920s.
Oh,
Okay, and she was a voodoo initiate. She practiced voodoo as a religion. She was very open about that. And she did that till the day she died. She had very specific and clear ethics. So a very, very powerful, effective woman. And I would love to speak with her.
do you know a black choreographer, Elio Promaro, in New York?
In where? New York?
70s.
No, I don't. No.
Okay, that's fine. All right.
Sure.
So yeah, do you exercise?
Yes, I do.
Good for you. What? In what? What do you do?
Right now, I'm just doing like general fitness stuff. I had an injury. I've got a second-degree black belt, and I used to fence, and I like those kinds of combat sports. Excuse me. But I had an injury to my hip, and it's been difficult, and so I've been kind of rehabilitating that, and it's been difficult. But I have to. I need to. If I'm not in shape, or if I'm not able to move around and stuff like that, I can't do my job. So I have to do it. Right.
That's wonderful. Great. It's been great to have you. Last
Can I-
word.
Okay,
Last
go.
word, like a clubhouse. Can you
Say
hear me?
last word. Yeah.
Last word from you.
Right now, I don't know how many people are listening or here, but or on replay or whatnot. But consider, if you are a filmmaker of any level, a serious person who wants to support an organization and be part of a growing organization that feeds your interests professionally. If you want to affect the industry, we're looking for people who have a vision. We're looking for people who, it might just be a vision for your own movie, but if you want to work with the guild, we want you on board. Right now, you can go to a website called producersportal.com. And you can become what we call a general member for $75 for your first year. And that would just be a supporting member, but we need the support. With the more filmmakers that come on board, the more industry power we have as a group. And we have a very strong, empowered group of people. We're unpaid. We do a lot of work. And we're creating something called, if you go to producersportal.com, you'll see film pods. That's what we think is the next kind of evolution of film distribution. Basically, you as a filmmaker can reach, what I said before, can reach the globe without going to any middleman at all, make the money so you can make another film. And so there's a lot of bells and whistles to that. But we're looking for members who need help, but who are serious about what they're doing, and who also have a vision for the future, and anywhere they are. So, and I'm always available to, for people that are talented and stuff like that. I give away a lot of free advice.
Some other young gun. Yeah. So all that said, be well and keep the good work, and be happy, and happy New Year.
I really appreciate this. And I like what you're doing, and I like that you're empowered and that you've got a vision. So thank you very much for the opportunity to be here.
Thank you, Shadow. Yeah. Thank you, everyone. So we're going to close this and have a great night.